What's going on? Social media chilling. And I'm really just here to give my thoughts on this whole Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul pay-per-view fight thing, right? It's kind of the perspective I'm coming from this morning. Because I have done a pinch of boxing, so I kind of have a point of view to talk from. Not only that, but sometimes I just want to make videos from the perspective of other shit instead of talking about relationships all the time. Because everybody and their mama got a perspective on a relationship, but everybody don't know what the fuck they talking about. But everybody universally is just slanging advice, and everybody doesn't, have necessarily the wherewithal of the experience. So it's just nice to get a break from just talking about men and women for a minute. Now, the first point of view I come from off the top of my head, it is insane that a man at 58 can get on pay-per-view and go 8 rounds in a boxing ring. Now, I didn't watch boxing per se, but I remember how big of a deal Mike Tyson was in the 90s, right? And I remember him being a stone cold, like he was a big deal, right? Mike Tyson was a very big deal. He wasn't somebody you'd want to be across from. I wouldn't fight Mike Tyson today. Like, I wouldn't fight Mike Tyson in a wheelchair. Like, you'd be a damn fool. But the one thing I did take from that is that Father Time catches up to every fucking body, right? Now, granted, Mike Tyson can probably beat up most people. Like, bar none, without thinking about it. He probably can beat most motherfuckers' ass just in general just off of technique. Because, look, certain things you learn, and if you've been doing it long enough, the technique of itself doesn't necessarily go away, right? And the type of fighter Mike Tyson was, he's the type of nigga, he's on your ass the whole match. That's probably why he kind of like took the losing position, so to speak, because look, at 58, I don't think he has the wind to really chase around someone in their mid-20s, so to speak. Now look, they have been talking about this shit for months, right? Mike Tyson is the name that drew the whole card together, if you ask me, because, who the fuck don't know who the fuck Mike Tyson is? But to give him an opponent like Jake Paul, I don't know a lot about Jake Paul, but I know motherfuckers want to see Jake Paul get his ass whooped. And that's kind of the draw of, Jake Paul's whole thing. I don't really watch Jake Paul fights like that because I'm not someone that watches boxing on a regular basis. But look, I will say this. I watch a lot of wrestling, right? And personally, I can tell when some shit's kayfabe. Meaning, like, I can tell when it's make-believe. I can tell when motherfuckers are just booking a match for the sake of booking a match, right? Mike Tyson took a payday. Because there was a couple of points in that match where he could have knocked motherfucking Jake Paul head off if he'd have tried harder. But, do you want to, like, okay, in wrestling terms, right? If you was to put someone of Mike Tyson's stature against someone that's like, of Jake Paul's stature in wrestling terms, it'd be like, let's say, it'd be like The Undertaker versus someone like, I don't know, what's the name that comes to mind? Undertaker versus Austin Theory, right? That'd be a good example, right? Undertaker's the person you build the match around because his name is much bigger. But he's not going to have the win to really fuck with someone like Austin Theory. But the way they structure the match or whatever, you can tell, like, they have to make it a entertainment type of thing. So, when I watch these pay-per-view things go on, I can tell that, some of this shit, like, okay, this ain't a real fight. The motherfuckers that fought before them, they were actually fighting. Like, this Jake Paul, Mike Tyson shit was just more so some WWE pay-per-view type shit. I can tell when I'm being sold, and I can tell when I'm watching a storyline, right? And granted, the match was, it was cool. Like, it wasn't like the greatest thing on the planet. It was cool. Like, I don't dislike it. I didn't hate it. I thought it was fun, even though I fell asleep beforehand, so I had to rewatch it this morning. You know what I mean? But it was one of them things with me, when I saw it, it's like, I think it's cool that a motherfucker at 58 can still box at that level to some degree. But at the same time, nigga, if you too old to be doing this shit, sit your ass down somewhere. Now, the other part I want to talk about, right? and I don't want to stay on this too long because it annoys me. Now, I just came from working out at Planet Fitness. And every time I walk in the locker room, I won't say every time, but a lot of times I walk into a gym locker room, it's always some old dude with his ass out, butt ass. I don't understand what the fuck. What is it about motherfuckers that are like, what is it about old men that just makes them become just like they don't give a fuck? Like, and I mean in the sense of like being disgusting. Like to just, I should have not seen Mike Tyson's bare ass on fucking pay-per-view. Like, did the fucking cameraman just not like be like, hey bro, like can you put some pants on real quick? Like, did no one like say anything to this nigga? Like, not only that, but Mike Tyson is one of those like, I think he's a cracked individual. That interview he gave to that fucking little 15-year-old kid about it doesn't matter if I live or die. Like, what? Like, who the fuck talks like that to a 15-year-old? Like, but then again, I've seen Mike Tyson here and there throughout the years, and I kind of know he's kind of a fried individual. Like, the way he thinks, just, he's like a very, like when I see people like him or Vince McMahon or, you know, or like P. Diddy or what's another one? Like Donald Trump. I feel like certain men have been alive on this planet too long and they've not given a fuck so long that they don't care what, like how they're not giving a fuck affects other people. That's the perspective I take that from. Cause that whole thing was just, ugh. Okay, like sometimes I talk to my mom and she says I'm gonna go through a midlife crisis, right? And I pray if I make it to the age of in my mid-50s or my 60s, right, that I am a individual that's okay with being 60 and I'm a mature, well-rounded 60-year-old. I do not want to be the 60-year-old that don't give a fuck, like in a disgusting kind of way. Like, I want to be the person that don't give a fuck in a way where things don't affect me, but like not in a way where I'm grossing out everybody else. But that's neither here nor there. That's just that little piece on that piece. Let's move on from Mike Tyson's ass, because pause. Anyway, now everybody else, as far as the card, right? As far as the card, again, I'm looking at this through WWE lenses because I watch a lot of wrestling, right? All the other individuals beforehand, look, everybody else that came before this fight, they were really fighting, right? But the thing with being a person that's really fighting is that the thing I notice about boxing is that motherfuckers don't give a fuck about boxing like that. Like, not the way it used to. Like, boxing used to be a thing. Like, motherfuckers these days, they watch it, but it's more so, like, I hear more about WWE pay-per-views more so than like, oh my God, we're having a boxing pay-per-view. Like, I think the last time someone gave a fuck about boxing this much is when Floyd Mayweather fought Conor McGregor, right? And he took him, I think, to like 11 rounds or whatever, right? Like the big fight feel. Like, I think the next thing that'll be somewhat close to this might be the Super Bowl. Like, something where America, this is the first time America ever felt like it was involved completely on a wrestling pay-per-view. Like, this wasn't wrestling, but it was wrestling-esque. But it felt like everybody was involved all in one time. And that felt good to like share that moment with everybody unanimously. Stuff like that is what social media is good for. Because the memes and the jokes are fucking hilarious. But, you know, that's my take on that. But watching all this through a wrestling lens, listen. If you had to ask me what the best fight of the night was, if I had to guess, it was those two women. Them bitches were slugging. Like, I don't know what the fuck them hoes had for breakfast that morning, but them bitches were pissed off at each other. They were really, I don't know nothing about them girls, but they were trying to prove a point. And see, that's how I know this stuff is kind of booked like wrestling. Because a lot of times it be the matches you don't expect to be the ones that really be like, yeah, like them two women. Like, okay, all the Spanish dudes that were fighting before the two women, those were solid fights. I mean, me and my girlfriend had fun. And that's another thing I liked about it. Because she was into it just as much as I'm into it. Like, now, we were kind of both on the same level of, like, into it as far as boxing. Meaning, like, I like sharing those moments where like okay, I'd rather watch a TV show that you're into versus watch some shit that I want to watch than you're not into it because you don't care. Like that was one of the favorite things I used to like about watching wrestling with my homeboy. Me and him would be watching it from the same perspective and we'd be having a blast, right? So that felt really good to watch it with my girlfriend and she'd be on bullshit the same way I'm on bullshit. Personally, and then look, beforehand, right? I said to myself, I said, Jake Paul's probably going to win this. Like, it was like, I remember me and her having that same thought. I was like, Jake Paul's going to win this. Like, because you got to think in wrestling terms, right? Because, again, I'm looking at this through a wrestling lens, right? Who has more to gain from a win? Like, who can boxing as a promotion or as a company invest in more? A 58-year-old Mike Tyson or a 20-something-year-old Jake Paul? I almost said Logan Paul. A 20-something-year-old Jake Paul. Who has more to benefit from winning here? Like, okay, Mike Tyson wins. Then what? Like, you got to think about what happens after that. So again, boxing may not be wrestling, but it's structured the same way, at least in today's time, right? Who has more to gain from a win? Like, okay, there was plenty of points in that match. I think Mike Tyson could have really knocked Jake Paul out if he really tried harder. Like, but I think it was kind of booked in a way where I think if Mike Tyson would have tried a little, like, cause like, okay, there was the Mike Tyson training videos, and then there was the way he fought when he was in the ring. Those were kind of night and day-ish, right? I'm watching them spar on one end. I'm like, damn, this nigga still got the win like that. But sparring against a motherfucker and then taking punches back from another motherfucker in mid-fight, those are two different things. And not only that, but one thing we keep forgetting is that Mike Tyson is 58. Like, dog, I aspire to move that good at 58. Like, you got to really think about it. To be in that good a shape at 50 fucking 8 is crazy. Like, but I think, like, just, okay. Because, like, when I heard his post-match tweet, so to speak, right, he was like, I'm just happy to be able to still be able to box. And I think that's a really nice perspective to look at it from. Because, I mean, look, Mike Tyson wins, Mike Tyson loses. The nigga got paid, so does it really make a difference? And it's not like he got his ass just completely beat. Like, it was just more so like, it was one more so by decision. So it's not like, that's what I mean by wrestling booking. Because when you lose, when wrestlers lose, right, it has to make sense story-wise. Like, okay, there's a way to book a wrestler to lose and then make him look like a winner even in losing. Like, if he, let's say for sake of argument, I guess the best way to describe it, let's say an Undertaker streak match, right? Undertaker had the streak at WrestleMania. He beat somebody. Like, I think one of the matches that I saw, right, from the Undertaker streak, if I remember correctly, was him and Triple H. Not the Hell in a Cell one, but the one before that. Where, Undertaker didn't leave the ring under his own power. He had to be carried out. But Triple H was the one that lost, but Triple H was the one that was able to walk out. That's what I mean. Like, it's storytelling. And unless you're someone that watches wrestling and really fucks with wrestling lore, you might not follow that. But there's a way, like, to book, like, stories within sports. Like, it was the same thing when, when Atlanta had the 20-point lead and then they blew it. Like, stuff like that makes, like, sports memorable. You know what I mean? Versus if a motherfucker just wins and they just win. Okay, Jake Paul wins. Like, but if, let's say Jake Paul would have, like, knocked Tyson out, like, motherfuckers would have remembered that. So it's just, again, a lot of that's kayfabe storytelling, and that's a lot of stuff I see when I watch stuff like this. Like, this same concept can be applied to Jake and Kendrick Lamar, right? Now, look, Drake's the bigger rapper. He's the one Drake's been making hits for the last 15 years, right? So, but the Kendrick Lamar-Drake feud had been building. They had been sending little subliminal shots here and there. And then it finally gets to a point where it blows off. That's what I mean by storytelling. Like, I'm not saying Kendrick Lamar and Drake rap, like the rap beef was the story. Like, it wasn't storytelling. But I'm saying, like, when it finally comes to a head, you know why it comes to a head, because you've been following the story the whole time, right? Okay, like, the reason why the Kendrick Lamar Drake rap beef blows off and goes, you know, makes the impact that it makes is because, one, Drake's the bigger rapper. Two, Kendrick Lamar's the better rapper. And three, Kendrick Lamar out-rapped Drake completely. Like, okay, there's a reason why Jay-Z wasn't, like, getting infused like that. Like, because someone that's the bigger rapper has more to lose. Like, okay, Mike Tyson had more to lose from this regardless. Like, okay, Jake Paul gets his ass beat by a 50-year-old. You get your... I mean, he loses, but does he really lose? Jake Paul can fight another day. Like, Mike Tyson gets his ass whooped, then it's like, damn, he really beat up an old man. Like, but that's storytelling. But I'm telling you, just from the perspective that I see it, because to me, it's all just storytelling, it's promotion. Like, okay, it's like a Rocky movie. Like, when you watch Rocky, like, none of that shit in Rocky's real. Niggas ain't really fighting like that and taking all those punches and just still. But it's the story that's being told. Like, okay, personally, I don't give a fuck if the fight is real or not. Right? I know it's not. Like, certain parts of it is orchestrated. But I'm saying, like, I don't give a fuck if the fight is real or not, long as it's entertaining. And to me, as far as the pay-per-view, I was entertaining. But that, you know, brings me to my next point. I gotta stop falling for these pay-per-view bookings, meaning, like, they're advertising it as Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. But for some reason, it didn't go off in my head to be like, you know what? Let me not show up right at 8 o'clock because I'm a punctual nigga. Like, so I showed the things right as they're like, oh, okay, the pay-per-view starts at 8, I'm being there at 8. Not knowing the main event ain't till 11. It was the same thing that happened to me at the Lloyd Banks concert. Like, they're like, oh, show up at 8 o'clock, da-da-da-da. And in my head, I'm thinking like, yeah, the show starts at 8. Not forgetting that motherfuckers are going to drag this shit to the ends of the earth. I showed it there at 8. That nigga didn't come out till like 11:30. So it's just some dumb shit I got to stop falling for. That and cooking bacon with my shirt off. Like, it's just certain shit, but that's the fun in it because you get wrapped up in the spectacle of the whole thing. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm grateful to be able to watch it. It was cool. Like, it was a moment in time. Same thing with the presidency. Like, motherfuckers are talking like black people are just down. Like, we lost, you know, Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris. So, and then Jake Paul beat Mike Tyson and motherfuckers are depressed. And that's another thing. I don't know what it is in today's time, but y'all have got to stop taking some of this shit to heart. Like, oh, it's over with for Mike Tyson. He'll never fight. Listen, Mike Tyson, if he trains Mike Tyson is a name, right? All he has to do is keep training. You know what I mean? And like, they book him for another match. Like, and Mike Tyson can just, like, he can get another 20 mil with this shit if he felt like it. So, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to do it again, but it's the same. Like, okay, when I watch a lot of Undertaker's matches, or like I watch a lot of older wrestlers, they wrestle less, but when they wrestle, they get paid more because they built their name to a point. Like, if they were to build a match around Undertaker at WrestleMania, right, they'd have to pay Undertaker a couple million for him to show up and do a choke slam. Like, but that's neither here nor there. These are just thoughts I thought about the fight. If I have more thoughts about it, I'll come back and probably make a part 2 to this. But for now, I got a lot of shit to do today. So I kind of have to cut this short. But I mean, again, I was thoroughly entertained by the whole thing. You know, I'm glad that boxing still can have an impact when you build it the right way. So, you know, it's Sunday. Make the most of it. I don't know what to tell you, nigga. I ain't got no outro for you today.